She hadn't said a word during the briefing. Not when the projector flickered against the canvas wall of the tent, painting the valley in pale, ghostly light. Not when the commander's hand, steady but tired, dragged a line across the map with a piece of chalk, marking where they were expected to hold by dawn. Not when the lieutenant, barely old enough to shave smooth, yet loud with nerves, repeated the numbers as if speaking them twice might make them less impossible. Her silence wasn't unusual. They were used to her quiet. She had long ago learned the strength of not speaking. Still, inside her chest, every word they spoke struck like shrapnel, sharp, heavy, cutting deeper than she let them see. She sat at the far end of the folding table, half hidden in shadow, a cup of black coffee cooling in her hand. Steam curled upward, dissolving into the night air. She didn't drink, didn't shift. She just listened, the way she always had, collecting details, storing them, turning them over like pieces of glass. The others barely noticed her silence. They never did, and she preferred it that way. Attention was a weight she couldn't carry, not tonight. Because what none of them knew, what she would never say, was this: she'd been to that valley before. She knew the shallow riverbed that cut through its spine, the way the stones caught light like broken mirrors at dawn. She knew the ridges that curved above it, cliffs that gave the enemy eyes sharper than any scope. And she knew the earth there, soft, damp, stubbornly unwilling to let go of what it claimed. She had left something in that valley years ago, something she had never spoken of. And tomorrow, the war was dragging her back to it. The meeting dissolved into chatter, chairs scraping, boots scuffing against the dirt floor. Men reached for cigarettes, for flasks, for easy jokes they didn't believe but needed to say. Fear had its own rituals. She stood without a word, moving through them like a shadow that didn't draw notice. Outside, the air was colder than she expected, sharp enough to sting her lungs. She breathed deep anyway, letting it hurt. Behind her, laughter rose too loud, desperate to be convincing. Someone swore about rations, another about sand in boots. She didn't join them. She never did. She walked farther, away from the glow of lanterns, toward the dark edge of camp where silence lived. Her boots pressed into gravel, crunching softly with each step. The rhythm was steady, deliberate, like a heartbeat trying to persuade itself it wasn't broken. And then she heard it, faint, crawling across the ridgeline. Not laughter, not human. The distant thrum of artillery, too far to fear but close enough to promise. She closed her eyes, let the sound settle into her chest. It was honest, it didn't lie. Fear wasn't weakness, she reminded herself. Fear was memory, and memory had teeth. She thought of the letter folded inside her rucksack. She had written it the night before, the same way she had before every mission. She always rewrote it, even though the words rarely changed. If I don't come back, tell him I was never angry. Tell him I understood. Tell him I carried him with me, every step, every breath. She had no plans of letting anyone read it, but letters like that weren't for the living. They were for the soul, a place to rest when the body couldn't. She pushed the thought down. Tomorrow wasn't about her soul. Tomorrow was about the line. Dawn didn't arrive like a sunrise. It arrived like a verdict. The valley stretched before them, gray and pale, still wrapped in mist that clung low to the ground like breath caught in a dying chest. The world looked softer in fog, deceptively gentle, but she knew better. She crouched with her squad behind a crumbling stone wall, rifle pressed to her shoulder, eyes sweeping the horizon where shadows moved too deliberately. Her breath formed clouds in the chill, vanishing as quickly as they came. Every nerve in her body remembered this place. The curve of the ridge, the hollow of the earth, the silence that pressed too close. She remembered because memory didn't leave. Memory stayed, buried beneath skin, waiting for moments like this. Movement 10 o'clock, a voice hissed through the radio. And just like that, the silence shattered. Figures emerged from the mist, not rushing, not reckless, moving with a patience that unnerved, as if the ground already belonged to them. Her finger found the trigger. She didn't pull. Not yet. Timing was everything. One heartbeat too soon and the line collapsed in panic. One too late and the line drowned in blood. Beside her, men shifted. Breath quickened. Boots scraped against stone. Fear was contagious. It traveled faster than any bullet. She steadied herself, slowed her pulse, watched the rhythm of their approach. Closer. One step more. Another. A figure leaned forward, bold, too sure of his own survival. Her shot broke the world open. The crack split the mist, thunder echoing across the valley. The line behind her flinched, but then steadied. Because sound carried more than bullets. It carried courage if you gave it the right weight. For the first time that morning, the enemy hesitated. And hesitation was a gift. The return fire was merciless. Stone exploded beside her, fragments cutting her cheek. Dirt sprayed, clattering against helmets. A scream broke to her right, sharp, raw, then swallowed by silence. She didn't look, she couldn't. The fight didn't allow grief. Not yet. She pressed her cheek to the rifle stock, eye locked through glass, movements mechanical but heart pounding hard enough to rattle her ribs. Every battle had rhythm. Every push carried its own beat. If you couldn't hear it, you didn't last. And beneath the storm of gunfire, she heard it, arrogance. They thought the wall would break. They thought fear would do the work for them. Her jaw clenched, not today. Between volleys, her gaze flicked to the soldier 2 bodies down, barely 20, face pale, hands trembling so hard his rifle clattered against the stone. His lips moved, whispering words he didn't realize were loud enough to hear. Maybe prayer, maybe a name. She caught his eyes for just 1 second, held them, steady, silent. And then she moved. Orders hadn't come. They wouldn't. Orders came too slow when seconds decided everything. She rose from the wall, sprinted low, boots splashing into the muddy ditch. She slid behind the rusting skeleton of a truck, half buried in earth. Bullets tore the metal above her, sparking bright and furious. But her movement changed something. The line shifted, heads lifted, courage spread, quick and fragile like fire catching dry brush. She didn't have to shout, didn't have to tell them to follow. Her body spoke louder than words. The enemy faltered, startled by the sudden push. Just a fraction, but fractions mattered. She took her shots clean, sharp, unflinching. She wasn't thinking about the lives she was ending. She was thinking of the line, of the boy whispering to someone who wasn't there, of the promise she'd made to herself years ago that the valley would not take another name she carried home. And for a heartbeat, when her rhythm broke theirs, the enemy stepped back. Not far, not gone, but back. And the wall behind her, for the first time all morning, breathed. By nightfall, the ridge still held. Reinforcements had not come. Reports were muttered, strategies sketched, exhaustion carried in every step. But she sat apart, helmet off, sweat cooling on her skin, eyes locked on the mist that clung stubbornly to the valley floor. No one asked why she had moved when she did. No one asked how her aim never shook. And she didn't tell them the truth, that in this valley, years ago, she had watched someone she loved fall, that she had pressed her hands into the dirt, whispering promises to the silence, swearing that if the day came again, she would not let the earth claim another. Some truths weren't for telling. Some truths were for carrying. Tonight she carried both. The silence and the line. Why was the boy still shaking? She noticed it long before anyone else did. His hands, his breath, the way his shoulders trembled even when the gunfire had ceased. Most men carried adrenaline after battle, a reckless surge of survival. But he carried something else, an emptiness too heavy for his frame. He sat hunched against the wall, helmet tilted, staring at nothing. His lips moved in silence the way they had during the fight. A name, always a name. She didn't ask, not yet. Some truths revealed themselves when silence gave them space. Instead, she lowered herself beside him, resting her rifle across her knees. The smell of cordite still clung to the air, sharp and metallic. Smoke drifted low over the field where bodies lay half-hidden in fog. A crow circled above, its cry splitting the quiet in a way that felt cruel. "Drink," she said softly, holding out her canteen. He blinked, startled, as if the sound of her voice alone was something unfamiliar. His hand shook when he took it. Water spilled down his chin, but he didn't seem to notice. She studied him, not the rank sewn crooked on his sleeve, not the dirt caked along his boots. She studied the eyes wide, drowning in something he couldn't name. She knew that look, she had worn it once. And she knew it wasn't fear. It was the dawning realization that death wasn't a story anymore. It was a presence, close enough to smell, close enough to touch. The night dragged. Lanterns flickered inside the command tent. Maps shuffled. Voices argued in low tones. Reinforcements were late. Supplies were thin. And the line they had held this morning would not hold forever. She sat outside, back against a crate, eyes on the horizon. The mist hadn't lifted all day. It clung stubbornly, as if the valley itself wanted to keep its secrets. A sergeant passed her, muttering about ammunition, another about radio silence, but no one stopped to speak. They had long ago learned she didn't waste words. Some respected it, some resented it, but none challenged it. Inside, laughter flared again, forced, too sharp. Men trying to carve light into darkness. She let it wash past her. She learned not to lean on laughter. It never lasted. She pulled the letter from her rucksack. The paper was creased, edges soft from folding and unfolding. Her handwriting was tight, deliberate. She read it again as if the words might change. They didn't. "If I don't come back, tell him I was never angry. Tell him I understood." She traced the letters with her finger, a ritual she hated but couldn't abandon. Each mission she promised herself she wouldn't write, and each mission the pen found her hand anyway. She folded it once more, slid it back, pressed her palms over her face, feeling the grit scratch against her skin. When she lowered her hands, the boy was standing there, the young one, helmet tucked under his arm, eyes uncertain. "You moved," he said, voice cracked. You just moved, when the rest of us couldn't." She looked at him, didn't answer right away. He shifted, uncomfortable. "Why?" he asked finally. Because she'd promised. Because the earth had already taken someone from her in this place. Because she refused to let it take another. But she only said, because the line needed it. His lips pressed together. He nodded once, but it was the nod of someone who didn't fully understand. Not yet. He walked away, she let him. Some truths had to be lived before they were believed. The next morning, the push came harder. She woke to the sound of mortars, the ground trembling beneath her sleeping bag. Dust rained from the canvas above. Shouts cut through the dawn. By the time she grabbed her rifle, the valley was alive again. The enemy had learned, no longer cautious, no longer testing. This time they surged. She sprinted to the wall, sliding into position beside the same boy. His jaw was clenched, knuckles white around his weapon. He met her eyes for half a heartbeat. There was fear, yes, but also something else. Expectation. The barrage tore into stone. Chips rained down, cutting skin. Smoke swallowed the mist, choking the air. Somewhere, someone screamed a name until the sound ended in static silence. She steadied her breath, listened for rhythm beneath chaos. Every battle had it. You only had to wait long enough to hear it. There. She lifted, fired. The recoil pressed into her shoulder, steady, familiar. Each shot a punctuation in the storm. The boy fired too. Not clean, not calm, but enough. His hand still shook, but his aim no longer drifted. For a moment the line held. But then she saw it, movement along the ridge, not a push, a flank. They were learning faster than command believed. Her stomach sank. She knew what was coming before the words reached her radio. "They're moving around us." Panic rippled through the line. Men twisted, shouting over each other, firing blind into mist. Fear spread like wildfire, quick and merciless. And in that panic the boy froze. His rifle dropped slightly, eyes wide, breath shallow. He was hearing something else now, not the fight, not the commands, something older, louder. She grabbed his arm hard enough to pull him back to the present. His head snapped toward her. Their eyes locked. "Breathe," she said. One word, firm, anchored. He did, barely. Then the ridge lit up. They fell back to the truck skeleton. Bullets screamed overhead, dirt exploded at their feet. Men shouted coordinates into radios that no longer answered. The wall they had held yesterday was shattering. She crouched low, pressing her back to rusted metal, chest heaving. The boy collapsed beside her, gasping. His hands were raw from gripping too hard. His lips moved again, that same name spilling out like prayer. She didn't ask, but in the spaces between gunfire she heard it clearly. Eli, Eli, Eli. Her throat tightened. The sound clawed at something buried deep. She forced it down, forced her hands to move, forced her body to act. But inside the name echoed, not his, hers. She had whispered a name in this valley once too, whispered it until her voice broke, whispered it until the earth swallowed it whole. And she knew then he wasn't just afraid, he was grieving. Even if the body hadn't fallen here, even if the story wasn't hers, grief recognized itself, always. She touched his shoulder just once, quick, steady. "We hold," she said. Not for command, not for strategy. For the names. Always for the names. By dusk the line bent but didn't break. Reinforcements still hadn't come. Supplies dwindled. Morale frayed thin as wire. Inside the tent, men argued again. Voices sharp, maps scattered, frustration spilling into the air like smoke. The commander barked orders. Someone cursed the radios. Someone else cursed the valley. She stood at the edge, helmet under her arm, silent as ever. The boy sat 2 chairs down, head bowed, hands clasped. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. She knew the silence he carried. And she wondered if anyone here realized what the silence cost. Because silence was never empty. It was heavy, full of names. She stepped outside, letting the night air cut against her skin. Stars shivered faintly above the ridge. The valley below lay dark, waiting. She closed her eyes, heard again the sound of his voice years ago, the promise she hadn't kept, the grave she hadn't marked. And she whispered, barely audible, so the wind would carry it alone. "I didn't forget." Then she straightened, adjusted her helmet, gripped her rifle until her knuckles burned. Tomorrow would come, and when it did, the line would need her again. How long could a line hold before it snapped? That question lived in every soldier's chest, though few dared to ask it aloud. She felt it now, thrumming in her ribs as the night bled into dawn and the valley stirred with movement once again. The mist hadn't left. It never did. It lay across the earth like a shroud, making shapes uncertain, distances dangerous. Every shadow could be a man. Every silence could hide a gun. She crouched in her place, cheek pressed to the rifle stock, listening more than seeing. The boy was beside her again, breathing too fast, hands tight but not trembling this time. Not as much. He had learned, or maybe grief had taught him faster than training ever could. The commander's voice crackled in her ear, strained. "Hold the wall until relief arrives. They'll break soon." She almost laughed, quietly, bitterly. Relief was always promised, rarely delivered, and the enemy didn't look close to breaking. If anything, they moved with more confidence each day, like predators who had already tasted blood. She whispered to herself, though no one heard. "They're not breaking, we are." The first strike came sudden, mortar fire raining down with a shriek that ripped the sky open. The wall buckled under the impact, stones shattering, dust blinding. Men threw themselves flat, covering heads, hearts pounding. Her ears rang sharp and high. The world shrank to muffled sound and vibrating earth. She blinked through grit, eyes searching, scanning. The boy was there, face pressed to dirt, lips moving again. Always a name. She grabbed his collar, pulled him upright. They couldn't stay flat. Not here, not when the second volley was coming. "Move," she shouted, voice raw. They stumbled to the skeleton truck. Metal groaned as explosions shook the ground, shrapnel slicing through the air like angry hornets. She pressed her back to Rust, rifle ready. The boy slumped beside her, coughing, eyes wide with disbelief that he was still breathing. The others weren't as lucky. A scream cut off too soon. A body lay twisted near the wall, unmoving. Another crawled, dragging a leg that bent wrong. The valley was taking its toll, again. Then the push came. Figures in the mist, bold, advancing fast this time. No patience, no testing. They wanted the wall gone, wanted the line erased. She steadied her rifle, sighted through the haze. Each shot she took was deliberate, not wasteful. But for every figure that fell, more pressed forward. They moved with numbers, with arrogance, with the knowledge that time was theirs. The boy fired beside her, wild at first, then steadier. His breathing hitched with each pull of the trigger as if each shot cost him something. She didn't tell him to calm down. Not now. Survival came first, reflection later. Her radio hissed, static, broken words, no clear orders, no reassurance. They were cut off again. It didn't matter. She didn't wait for orders anyway. Orders came too late. Her eyes flicked to the ridge. Movement there, familiar. The same flank she'd seen yesterday, sharper now, closer. They were learning, adapting, pressing where the line was weakest. She cursed under her breath, not in frustration, just fact. The valley always punished predictability. She grabbed the boy's shoulder. "Stay low, follow me." He hesitated, his lips moved, that same name, Eli. She froze for half a breath. That name cut, too close, too sharp. She shook it off, pulled him forward. Later, not now. But the echo of the name lodged in her chest like shrapnel that wouldn't come out. They scrambled along the wall, moving toward higher ground. The mist was thicker here, swallowing sound, muting shapes. She kept low, rifle ready, eyes sharp. Every sense was alive. She could taste iron on her tongue, feel the grit grind between her teeth. Her boots slid on wet stone, her balance held by instinct alone. The boy stumbled once, catching himself on her arm. He muttered something, apology maybe, but she shook her head, kept moving. No time for words. A figure loomed ahead, too close, too fast. Her rifle snapped up, fired point blank, the body crumpled. The boy flinched, breath catching. She didn't look at him. Couldn't, not now. They pushed higher, reaching a ridge line that overlooked the valley. From here, the truth was clear. The wall was buckling. The men below were scattered, holding by desperation more than discipline. The enemy pressed hard, relentless. The line couldn't last, not without something more. Her jaw tight. She had been here before. Different year, different faces, same valley, same hopelessness. And last time, she hadn't moved fast enough. Memory broke through without permission. She saw him again, his face smeared with mud, his grin stubborn even when fear was thick in his eyes. He had stood where she was now, rifle steady, telling her they could hold, telling her she needed to trust. She had trusted. And then he had fallen. The earth had taken him before she could drag him back. One moment alive, the next silent. She had pressed her hands into the dirt, whispering his name until her throat bled, whispering promises she couldn't keep. She had left him there, buried in silence. And now the valley wanted more. Her stomach twisted, her hands tightened on the rifle. Not again, not this time. She turned to the boy. His face was pale, streaked with sweat and dirt, but his eyes searched hers, waiting, trusting. The same way his had. Her breath caught, her chest ached. She whispered, not sure if she wanted him to hear. "I can't lose another." The ridge gave them sight, gave them power. Her shots rained precise, cutting through the flank, forcing them to slow, to falter. The boy fired too, shakily but hitting more than missing. Together they bent the push. Below, the line steadied. Men saw figures fall on the ridge and found their courage again. The valley, for the first time that day, exhaled. But victory was never clean. A shot cracked, sharp, close. She felt it tear past her ear, hot, violent. She ducked, pulling the boy down with her. The echo told her the truth: sniper, hidden in the mist, watching the ridge. She pressed her cheek to the dirt, breath shallow. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She scanned, searching, every shadow suspicious. The boy shook, not from fear, from rage. His lips moved again, spitting that same name: Eli. She grabbed his chin, forcing his eyes to hers. Focus. He blinked, tears mixing with grit, but he nodded. She swallowed hard, forced her own voice steady. We move on my mark. The sniper fired again. Stone exploded inches from her hand. Time slowed, choices narrowed, she had seconds. She looked at the boy, too young, too broken, too trusting. She thought of the name he carried, thought of the name she still whispered. And she knew the valley would not stop until it claimed one of them. Her jaw set, breath steady. When the next shot came, she moved. She pushed the boy flat, rolled to the side, exposing herself just long enough to draw the sniper's fire. The crack split the air, heat tearing across her shoulder, flesh burning. Pain flared white-hot, but she bit it back, eyes locking on the shadow where the shot came from. Her rifle rose. Her finger pulled. The sniper dropped. Silence followed, heavy, absolute. The boy stared at her, eyes wide, chest heaving. Blood ran down her arm, staining her sleeve, dripping into dirt. She pressed her palm to it, hissed through her teeth. He opened his mouth, words fumbling. You saved me. She shook her head, cut him off. No, I bought us time. Below, the line held barely. Above, the mist thickened, hiding what else might come. Her body trembled, not from fear but from memory, from the weight of knowing how close she had come, again, to losing someone she couldn't bear to lose. She closed her eyes, whispered so softly he couldn't hear. Not this time, not you. The valley had taken once. It would not take again. Not while she still breathed. The valley did not go quiet. It never truly did. Even when the shooting stopped, even when the mist hung heavy like a lid pressed tight over the earth, the silence was never silence. It was breathing, the shallow, uneven kind. It was whispers, the scrape of boots against stone, the distant moan of someone calling for help. And it was her pulse, pounding raw, too loud in her ears. She pressed her palm to her shoulder. The wound wasn't clean, it never was. The bullet had grazed deep, tearing flesh, burning its way through. Not fatal, not yet, but every beat of her heart pushed warmth through her fingers, made her arm heavier. The boy crouched beside her, eyes locked on the blood. His mouth opened, closed, opened again, like he wanted to say something but didn't know if he should. She gave him a look sharp enough to cut. I'm fine. He blinked, swallowed, nodded, but his eyes didn't believe. She leaned back against the stone, let the rifle rest across her lap. The valley stretched below, broken wall, scattered bodies, smoke curling upward in lazy spirals. The men were still there, moving among the ruins, checking the wounded, dragging stones into place as if the wall could rise again, as if the wall could protect them. But she knew, she had always known. Walls only bought time, they never stopped the inevitable. The boy's voice came quiet, like a thread in the mist. You almost died. Her eyes stayed on the valley, not the first time. He didn't answer right away. His hands fidgeted, dirty nails scraping at each other. Finally, he asked, Why'd you do it? Why'd you take the shot instead of me? Her head turned slow. His face was pale, streaked with grime, but his eyes were sharp now. Not a child's eyes, a survivor. She exhaled, long, steady. Because you're still breathing, and that has to count for something. His lips pressed tight, fighting something inside him. Anger, grief, both. He spat the word like it hurt him. Eli. There it was again, that name. Her chest tightened. Her hand slipped from her shoulder wound, clenched into a fist against her knee. Who was he? She asked, voice low. The boy stared at her, throat working. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then the words tumbled, broken, jagged. My brother. The mist seemed heavier suddenly, the air colder. The boy's voice shook as he spoke, but he didn't stop. They took him first. When they came through the village, said he was old enough, said he had to fight. He didn't want to go, but they dragged him. He looked back at me and he said I had to live, that I had to stay. His breath hitched. His hands clenched until the knuckles went white. But he didn't come back. They said he died here, in this valley, on this line. They didn't even bring him home, just a name on a list. Just nothing. The boy's shoulders shook. His voice cracked. So I came to find him, to stand where he stood, his chest heaved, to not let him be forgotten. Her throat closed, hard. She looked away, back to the valley below, because if she looked at him too long, she would see more than his face. She would see another, mud-smeared grin, stubborn eyes, the man she had left buried in silence. The boy's grief was raw, fresh, but it was the same shape as hers. She closed her eyes, whispered, barely audible. I know. The boy's head snapped toward her. You. Her jaw tightened. Words stuck in her throat like barbed wire, but she forced them out. I lost someone here too. The admission felt dangerous, exposed, but it was truth. She breathed shallow, steady, eyes still shut. He stood where you stand. He fought when the line was thin. He told me we could hold. He told me to trust. And then, her hand pressed harder to her wound as if the pain would ground her. The valley took him, just like it took your brother. The boy stared, his mouth open but nothing came. She opened her eyes, met his gaze. I know what it is to carry a name like that, to whisper it when no one listens, to keep it alive when the world would rather forget. The boy's eyes filled. He bit his lip hard as if to stop himself from crying, but the tears came anyway, cutting lines through the dirt on his cheeks. She didn't tell him to stop, didn't tell him to be strong. The valley didn't need strength, it needed honesty. They sat there for a long time, the mist shifting around them, the valley breathing its restless breath. Her shoulder throbbed, every pulse a reminder of how close she'd come. The boy's quiet sobs faded into silence, into the weight of memory that now bound them both. Finally he spoke again, voice hoarse. Do you think they remember them, out there, beyond this valley? Her eyes traced the broken wall, the men still dragging stones, the endless mist that hid everything beyond. She thought of parades no one attended, names etched in stone that no one touched, promises made by leaders who never stepped into the mud. Her answer came slow, heavy. No, they don't. The boy's face fell. But then she added, softer. But we do, and as long as we breathe, they're not gone. The boy blinked, swallowed hard. His lips moved again, whispering the name. Eli. She whispered hers too, under her breath, so quiet only the mist heard. For a moment, it felt like both names lingered in the air together, like the valley itself held them. Movement below broke the silence. A scout running along the broken wall, shouting, waving his arms. Men turned, faces lifting with something that looked like hope. The boy sat straighter, wiping his eyes. What is it? She strained, listening. The scout's voice carried just enough. Relief column coming through the pass. Her breath caught, relief, real this time maybe. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the fire in her shoulder. Her legs trembled but held. The boy rose with her, rifle clutched tight, eyes wide with something between fear and belief. She looked at him, then at the valley, then at the broken wall that had cost too much already. Her voice was steady, calm. It's not over, not yet, but maybe, just maybe, we don't fall today." The boy nodded, fierce now, "For Eli." She swallowed hard, whispered back, "For all of them." As the mist shifted, as distant shapes moved in the pass, she felt the valley watching, waiting. It had taken before, it would take again. But for this moment they still stood, wounded, weary, remembering. And sometimes she thought that was enough. The valley shifted when the rumor of relief passed through the line. It moved like a spark, faces lifted, shoulders straightened, eyes dared to look beyond the mist. Men who hadn't spoken in hours muttered to one another, fingers uncurled from weapons. The boy clutched his rifle tighter, as if the word alone, relief, was enough to anchor him to life again. But she did not relax. Her eyes narrowed toward the pass. The mist swirled, thick, restless, hiding whatever marched beyond. And in her chest, behind the throbbing wound, something old and sharp twisted. Hope was dangerous. She had seen it kill before. The boy whispered, voice trembling with something like awe. "Do you hear it? Boots, metal, they're coming." She listened. Yes, there it was. The faint, rhythmic sound of movement, boots on stone, the low rattle of gear, the distant hum of engines muffled by fog, shapes forming where the mist broke. The men on the line began to stir. Some even smiled. One of them, a tall soldier with grime caked to his jaw, muttered, "We made it. They didn't forget us." His words were part prayer, part disbelief. But she kept her rifle across her lap, one finger resting against the trigger guard. Her eyes never left the pass. Because there was something wrong. The rhythm, it was too slow, too steady. Like a drumbeat, not the hurried chaos of allies pushing through to save what was left. And the engines, she knew that sound, but not from her side. Her hand tightened on the rifle. The boy noticed, "What is it?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Don't trust it yet." His brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. "But it's them. It has to be." Her eyes stayed sharp, cold, fixed on the shapes breaking from the mist. "It doesn't have to be anything." And then the first figures appeared. Helmets, armor, tall silhouettes cutting through fog, rows of them, too precise, too clean. Not the ragged edges of men who had fought their way through the valley. These marched in rhythm, formation. And the insignia on their shoulders. Her breath froze. Not theirs. The first shot rang before the men on the line even understood. It was a crack, sharp, merciless, and the soldier who had prayed a moment ago dropped, eyes wide, mouth still shaped around the word made. His helmet rolled across the stone, ringing hollow. Then chaos. The relief column opened fire, not with desperation but precision. Muzzle flashes lit the mist. Bullets shredded stone. The half-built wall crumbled further. Men screamed, ducked, scrambled for cover. And the boy froze. She lunged, yanking him down behind the broken rock, her wounded shoulder screaming. The impact jolted her vision, stars sparking at the edges, but her voice cut through the chaos, sharp and steady. "Don't look, move." He blinked, stunned, but they said. They lied. The valley roared again. Gunfire, screams, the betrayal so loud it shook the ground. She dragged the boy deeper into cover, her arm weak, blood slick against her sleeve. Her rifle barked in her hands, one shot, then another, controlled, measured. She didn't fire to kill them all. She fired to slow, to blind, to keep the boy breathing one heartbeat longer. The boy pressed his back to the rock, trembling. His lips moved, whispering his brother's name again like a shield. "Eli, Eli." She turned, snapped his chin up so his eyes met hers. "Not Eli, do you understand, you?" His breath hitched, he nodded barely. And in that moment, she saw him for what he was, not a soldier, not a replacement for his brother, not a shadow of the dead. Just a boy trying not to vanish in the same silence that had swallowed everything he loved. It made her chest ache more than the wound. The false relief kept advancing, disciplined, merciless. They weren't here to save. They were here to finish, to erase. And the men who had lifted their heads, who had let hope in, they fell quickest. Their shock slowed them, made them hesitate. She could feel it, the betrayal heavier than bullets, breaking them before the enemy even touched them. Betrayal was always the sharper blade. She crouched lower, checked her magazine, almost empty. She, known it would come to this. She'd seen it in too many valleys. The boy's voice shook. What do we do? Her eyes flicked to him. He was clutching his rifle, knuckles pale, but he hadn't fired yet. He didn't know if he could. Her answer came steady, stripped of everything but truth. We endure, one more breath, one more step, until they're done with us. He swallowed hard, and then. Her voice softened, bitter and quiet. Then we don't let them take who we are, even if they take everything else. The firefight surged closer. Stones shattered around them. The wall was gone now, just rubble. The line was breaking. Men scattered into the mist, some running, some screaming, some standing and firing until the storm consumed them. The boy looked at her, eyes wide, desperate. We can't hold, not like this. Her jaw clenched. He was right, this wasn't a battle, it was an execution. She thought of turning, of running, of dragging him with her through the mist, but the pass was closing. The shapes were everywhere, and her shoulder was weakening, every pulse draining her faster. She closed her eyes, exhaled. There was no winning, only surviving long enough for survival to mean something. Her hand found the boy's wrist, squeezed hard. Stay low, stay quiet, don't waste rounds, breathe. His chin trembled, but he nodded. And together, they sank deeper into the valley's shadow, waiting, holding, remembering. Above the roar, above the betrayal, she heard something else. Not boots, not engines, a sound faint but growing, a hum higher, sharper, cutting through the mist from the east, different. Her eyes snapped open, her heart stuttered, she knew that sound. Aircraft. Not theirs, not the false relief, something else. Her breath caught, hope sparking against every warning inside her. But she didn't say it out loud, not yet. Because hope, she knew, could kill as quickly as bullets. The sound grew louder. It cut across the valley like a blade, higher and sharper than the rhythm of boots, stronger than the crack of rifles. The mist seemed to vibrate with it, trembling in pale ripples. She pressed her cheek against the stone, listening, blood sticky against her skin. The boy crouched close, wide-eyed, his mouth open as if he, too, felt the sound more than heard it. An aircraft. But whose? That was the question that could save them, or end them. The enemy soldiers halted for a heartbeat, their formation shifting. Helmets tilted upward. Even they hadn't expected this. The air trembled again, a thrum, heavy, metallic, unmistakable. Engines. The boy whispered, breathless. It's them, it has to be. Her eyes stayed fixed on the mist. Don't say that. He blinked, confusion flickering. Why not? Her lips pressed tight. She remembered another valley, another sound in the sky. The promise of salvation that turned to fire raining down, not rescue but cleansing. A command made far away from people who never tasted mud or blood. She had learned then, the sky could betray as easily as the ground. The mist shivered again. Shadows formed above the ridge, faint outlines against the pale gray. Not one aircraft, two, maybe three. The men on the line stirred. Some ducked lower. Some lifted their heads like worshippers. One of them, a sergeant with half his face blackened by soot, shouted hoarsely, "Cover your positions. Friendlies inbound." Friendlies. Her stomach twisted. Words like that were poison when spoken too early. The boy looked at her, eyes desperate. If it's ours. She cut him off. If it's ours, we'll know soon enough. Her rifle shifted in her hands. Her finger hovered near the trigger, not aimed at the sky, but ready. Always ready. The first aircraft broke through the mist. It came low, slow. its nose tilting downward, engines roaring like a storm caged in steel. Its wings spread wide, heavy with armaments. Its hull bore markings dark, sharp, impossible to read in the haze. The boy squinted. Is that? Gunfire split the question apart. The aircraft opened fire. Not at them, not at the scattered, broken men on the line, but at the false relief column, their armor flashing as bullets tore through ranks. The enemy soldiers staggered, fell, their formation shredded by fire from above. The valley lit up, stone shattered, mist burned away under muzzle flashes. The false relief broke, scattering for cover. The boy gasped, relief flooding his face. It's ours, it has to be. But she didn't cheer, didn't smile. Her rifle stayed firm. Because she had seen fire fall from the sky before, and sometimes it didn't matter who it hit first. The second aircraft dove, engines howling, unleashing rockets into the pass. The ground shook, dust rising in choking clouds. The enemy reeled, voices swallowed by thunder. The men on the wall cheered, some standing tall, lifting their rifles as if to welcome their saviors. Hope surged through them like a fever. But she stayed low. Her eyes tracked the aircraft as it banked, turning wide, slow, circling. Its hull markings caught the light for a brief moment, and her breath caught with it. Not theirs. Her chest went cold. Her grip on the rifle tightened until her knuckles whitened. The boy saw her face, his own paled. What is it? Her voice was steady, sharp, the edge of truth slicing hope in half. They're not here for us. The third aircraft swept low, so close she felt the wind tear at her hair. For a moment, it was like the valley itself bowed beneath its shadow. Its guns stayed silent, but its presence alone was enough to press every breath thin. She knew that design, sleek, predatory, built not to save but to control. Mercenaries, contractors, the kind who didn't wear nations, only deals. Her stomach twisted. Someone had paid for this, not for rescue, not for mercy, but for cleansing. The boy's face crumpled, his lips trembled. Then why are they firing at them? Her eyes never left the circling aircraft. Because that's step one. He swallowed, and step two. Her answer came like a blade, sharp and merciless. Step two is us. The boy shook his head, denial spilling from him. No, they wouldn't. They would. Her voice cut through, firm, steady. I've seen it, clear the enemy, then clear the witnesses, nothing left but silence. His hands trembled on the rifle. His breath came too fast, shallow. He was too young to know this kind of truth, but the valley had no age limit. She grabbed his wrist, squeezed hard enough to anchor him. Breathe, listen to me, we don't move until we know, do you understand? His chin quivered, he nodded once. Above them the aircraft banked again, engines roaring, casting shadows over the broken wall. The men who had cheered moments before began to falter. Some noticed the markings too. Others just felt it, the way the aircraft lingered, circling, measuring. Hope cracked, fear seeped back in. And she knew the truth, the valley wasn't done yet. The first aircraft slowed, nose tilting, guns angling downward. This time not at the fleeing enemy, but at the line. Her stomach clenched, the moment stretched, long, thin, unbearable. She whispered not to the boy, not to anyone but to herself. Not again. The boy grabbed her arm. His voice was a broken plea. What do we do? Her eyes stayed, locked on the descending shadow. Her voice came like steel, low, unwavering. We endure. The engine screamed, the valley braced. And for a breathless moment, the sky decided what would live and what would vanish. The radio crackled once, then went silent. Alina adjusted her headset, waiting for the reply that never came. Static whispered in her ear, thin as breath, until even that cut out. A dead line. And in that moment she realized something the others hadn't yet. Command wasn't listening anymore. They were alone. The outpost felt tighter than ever. Four walls, sandbags stacked high, rifles leaning against every corner. She could see the nervous glances of the younger soldiers, how their hands flexed around the grips of their weapons. None of them wanted to be the first to ask the question. If the line had gone quiet, then what? Her breath fogged slightly in the cooling night air. The desert had a way of biting hard once the sun fell, every rock and shadow sharpening. She checked her watch. Time was thinning out. The enemy didn't need dawn to strike. They could already be crawling low in the valleys, closing the distance in silence. A young corporal sat near the sandbags, helmet too large for his head. He rubbed his thumb over a silver ring, over and over. Alina crouched next to him, steady voice. First deployment. He nodded, swallowing. My wife, she's 8 months. I don't know if, his voice broke, the words catching like gravel in his throat. Alina placed her gloved hand over his, just one bead of human warmth against the cold steel of war. You'll see her, but only if you trust yourself here. Keep your eyes open. Don't let fear blind you. She meant it for him, but she was also speaking to herself. Her chest tightened with a memory she didn't want. Her father, his boots heavy on the porch when she was 12, turning away from her tears as he left for another deployment. The door had closed and silence had swallowed the room. She had promised herself then that she would never be the one left behind. And yet here she was, repeating his footsteps. From the shadows outside, a sound cut through the quiet. Not a gunshot, not yet, just the scrape of something dragged across stone, intentional, slow, like someone wanted them to hear. The squad froze, eyes darted, breaths held. Alina's hand raised silently, hold position. She moved toward the edge of the outpost, crouched low and peered beyond the sandbags. The valley stretched out before them, dark and endless, but movement was there, subtle, a ripple of figures shifting against the landscape. One, two, too many to count. They were testing, pressing the line, not yet attacking but waiting for the right fracture of panic to push through. She slipped back into cover, her voice steady, calm, as if her pulse wasn't racing. They're here. No one spoke. The corporal's ring slipped from his fingers and clinked softly against the concrete. The sound carried like a hammer strike in the silence. Alina picked it up and pressed it back into his palm. You hold on to this. Don't let go, that's your anchor. He nodded, eyes wide. The squad leader, an older sergeant with a limp that never quite healed, leaned close to her. We don't have comms, no reinforcements. They'll crush us if we don't move. Alina shook her head. If we move, they'll break us in the open. We stay. We force them to play our pace, not theirs. Her words carried weight, not because of her rank, but because of the steadiness behind them. For a moment, the sergeant's shoulders eased. For a moment, the others breathed again. But inside, Alina's chest was burning. Her father's words echoed, ones he had left in a letter she'd once hidden away. When the silence comes, you'll have to be the voice they follow, even if you're afraid. And she was afraid. Terrified, in fact. Afraid of failing them, afraid of becoming another memory for someone waiting back home. The scrape outside came again, louder this time, more deliberate. The enemy wanted them rattled. Alina exhaled slowly, centering herself. Then in one swift motion she rose above the sandbags, rifle braced, eyes narrowed. A shape moved in the dark. She fired once, controlled, precise. The echo rang through the valley, rolling like thunder across stone. Silence followed. The squad held their breath. And then from the valley voices rose, not cries, not fear. A chant. Low, rhythmic, unbroken. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, stamping the ground in unison. It wasn't just a test anymore. The push was coming. And Alina, steadying her rifle, whispered to herself so quietly only she could hear. Not this line, not tonight. The chant in the valley thundered, rolling like a storm that had no end. Alina's finger hovered just above the trigger. Her pulse beat in her throat, not from panic but from clarity. Every sound, every shadow, every breath in the outpost sharpened as though the night itself had pulled her into focus. The line had been drawn. The only question left, would it hold? The younger soldiers shifted, hands trembling against their rifles. The sergeant adjusted his stance, grimacing as the old injury in his leg fought him. The corporal's silver ring gleamed faintly in the moonlight as he pressed it tight between his fingers like a prayer. Alina let her eyes move over them one by one. Their fear was real, but so was their resolve. She felt it rising, raw and unspoken, waiting for something to shape it. And in that moment she knew, if she faltered, they would shatter. Her voice cut through the dread, low but unwavering. They want us to break. They're waiting for us to run, but we don't. We don't give them that. You hold every inch, every second you hold. The sergeant's jaw clenched, then he gave a sharp nod. The others followed, breath steadier now. A thin spark of defiance lit the air between them. And then the valley roared. Figures surged from the shadows, a wave of motion against the sand. Gunfire cracked, bullets slicing the night, tracers streaking red through the dark. The outpost shuddered under the storm. Alina's rifle barked in precise rhythm. Not frantic, not desperate, measured. One shot, breath, another, each round placed like a promise. She shifted positions, guiding the younger soldiers with gestures sharper than words. Her presence became the spine of the defense, holding them upright when chaos tried to bend them. The sergeant cursed as his leg buckled, but still he fired. The corporal whispered his wife's name under his breath between bursts of gunfire. Even in terror, life clung stubbornly to hope. Minutes dragged like hours. The chants outside turned to shouts, then to silence, then rose again. The push came harder, closer. A grenade landed near the sandbags. Alina grabbed it, heaved it back before it could claim them. The explosion ripped the valley, shaking dust loose from the outpost walls. Her ears rang, her chest burned, but she didn't stop. Through the smoke, she saw a figure break through the press of shadows, charging closer than the rest. The shape blurred, but in her mind it became something else, her father striding home through the dust after his final deployment. She blinked, forced the image away, and fired. The figure fell. And then suddenly the wave broke. The chanting faltered, stuttered, and faded. The valley fell back into silence. Alina lowered her rifle, chest heaving. The others scanned the darkness, waiting for the next surge, but it didn't come. The sergeant sank against the wall, sweat pouring down his face. The corporal let out a laugh, half relief, half disbelief, that his ring was still clenched tight in his hand. For a moment, the air was nothing but ragged breathing and the smell of gunpowder. Alina stood still, scanning the valley. The shadows had retreated, not defeated maybe, but pushed back. The line had held. She sank to one knee, pressing her forehead briefly to the cool stone of the outpost wall. A whisper escaped her lips, barely audible even to herself. "For you, Dad, for all of them." The memory of him lingered, his silence, his distance, the letter she had hidden away. She understood him now in a way she hadn't before, not as a soldier, but as a human being carrying fear, carrying love, carrying weight too heavy for words. The others began to speak quietly, voices fragile but alive. Someone asked for water. Someone else asked for the time. Small, ordinary things that felt monumental in the aftermath. Alina looked at them, each one, and felt the burn of pride in her chest, not for herself, but for the way they had stood when the night tried to break them. She didn't need to tell them what it meant. They already knew. As the first pale line of dawn cut across the horizon, Alina lifted her rifle and set it gently aside. The desert wind swept through the outpost, carrying with it the faint scent of morning. No cheers rose, no medals would be pinned, but that was never the point. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And as the sun broke over the valley, the silence that followed carried more weight than any words ever could.